destinations.
And hello, everyone. We want to invite our good friend Garry Drake on the show today.
Thanks for coming
Thanks
on.
for coming on today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Really excited to do this. We've been talking about it for a little bit, so I'm excited. Long trip. How was the commute?
The drive up was pretty good. I kind of took my time. You know, I've busted through before where I'm just going all the time. As far as like driving 12 straight hours to get up here, I did it in one night once, and that was too much. But on the way up, I left like about midday South Carolina and showed up down here. Was it about 6 o'clock last night? So took my time.
Yeah.
Nice. I made that commute. I did a all-in-one run all the way to Florida in one drive. No, we ended up stopping in Georgia or whatever, but this was to Florida. So, and it was nuts. Eventually, the one that I did back, we did one whole non-stop run, but I was just so done. I wanted to get back, and I'd never do it again. Never a long drive like that. I'm just not built to do long drives. Especially now with a kid.
Right, and then like you sit there for so long too, and you just get gross just stewing in your own car, and like you don't realize it. then you get out, stretch your legs every once in a while, and it's like, ooh, I'm a little ripe.
Need to get space and all that. Hey, I'm gonna bring your microphone in just a slight amount there. It's always a test thing because I just for the listeners out there, I adjust the levels. So anybody that listened to the last one, the levels were a little over the place. So I apologize to anybody who was listening. Now we've got them a little bit more dialed in. Usually compressors and limiters can fix any things where I'm off, but it's like that I was way off. They were so panned. I felt bad because it had a really heavy amount of Brandon coming through, and then us not so much. So when I had to level it out, I didn't want hearing all of us breathing.
Like I was talking from back here.
Yeah, right. And Brandon was like up this close. So it's always a balance, but usually we do pretty good on the sound levels and all that. But recording is its own art. There's so much to friggin' learn.
Oh, absolutely.
This is just podcast recording.
Very new to this, but like I listen to talk radio all the time. I listen to podcasts all the time. Like, not being a fan is going to necessarily make me good. So hopefully this isn't the most boring episode of your show ever. But
no,
I was going to say at the same time though, it's something I always wanted to do. So here we are.
That's awesome.
Yes.
It's great because the thing for me I really adore about podcasts and the fact that it's a new landscape for radio in a way. It doesn't have the restrictions of FCC regulations. People can really just kind of speak their mind, and it's really contingent on how effective your podcast is really, and how far it reaches and how many people actually want to listen to it. If it's something that's listenable, I think what people are really, at least I've gathered that it seems like people are capturing from podcasts is that it's not all just sound bites. It gives people real opportunity to hear people talk back and forth. Like everything is so digital now that you see, just what the other person's hammering off into digital space, but you're seeing what they're typing. You're not seeing their emotion and their input to
right, and the feeling in the voice and just the good back and forth you get between people. And that's definitely something that is missing from society now. And I know we talked, but I heard you guys talk a lot about just how the digital age and cell phones and everything, and we come from that in between millennial age. I don't know if there's a good set thing for it
really
as far as term goes, but I know that's a favorite topic of even people older than us to the people nowadays that want to talk about all the glory of it. So
we remember friggin' Oregon Trail, right? that was a jam back in was it elementary school, right?
Yes.
I remember we had Apple IIs in school still.
Absolutely, floppy disks and everything, and really some ways sometimes I think that was the first shooter. Yeah. Because some people would play not to actually do anything, but just go to the hunting stages and just go in a circle and shoot bison.
I didn't even think about that.
And deer and rabbits, and I got the rabbit.
Holy shit! I never really put that in perspective. That it really was like one of the first shooter games that people really, if you think about it, people go back for aiming and all that stuff. What was that game that they had where it's like you were launching catapults? You were catapulting. It was like an Apple II game way back in the day, but you had to gauge the distance based on how you were throwing the catapult. So you gauge how far away it was basically in linear distance, and then try to gauge like where the bar was, where you need to measure it to launch. I don't know. I forget what the
Yeah,
name.
no, and
I don't
I remember I played that for like all of elementary school. Like I freaking loved that game. And I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. Somebody out there is going to say something.
It's possible.
Yeah.
In the comment field that doesn't exist yet because we don't have a YouTube.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
okay. That's
I
for the
gotta-
better, though. You never want to look in comment section, whether it's negative or positive.
Oh, especially in the
That's just
YouTube.
the battlefield right there.
It is a mess out there. You look read the YouTube comment sections are just brutal.
Some of it's really funny.
Yeah, some of it gets out
Some
there.
of it's really like, oh.
Yeah, it's a big fucking chaos mess. But the digital age has turned us into that, right? Like it strips away the personality. Like there's things that people say to each other. I mean, everybody on almost every podcast talks about this, right? That people will say shit online to other people that they would never say in real life. And I think that becomes even more common as time goes on. People become more and more sheltered and less likely to, speak like this in person. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely, and in a roundabout way too. Something that I've noticed in my time spent as a drill sergeant, actually kind of keyed me into this too. Is that like eye contact?
Mm-hmm.
People don't make eye contact anymore.
That's true.
Like
Yeah.
even like when you go get coffee, like I made eye contact with my barista, and like it's just like, why is he looking me in the eyes right now?
Right,
like,
right.
why isn't he just like, why isn't this a robotic transaction right now?
It's like a
And
social anxiety
yeah,
thing
it's-
of our generation.
No, absolutely, because you don't even have that anymore with the cell phones and social media and
Yeah.
things like that. And I mean, people love posting their pictures and their faces up there sometime, but like when it comes to like just having to look somebody in the eye while you're having a conversation, it's huge.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, and like I said,
That is
I
wild. I didn't really think about that because you're right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like I even found myself doing it too without even realizing it, and like I became conscious of it, being in the military, because you give orders to people. You got to look somebody in your eye, and it's a part of good communication. Something like I'm sure we've all learned at some point in our elementary school
true.
upbringings, or our interactions with our elders, parents, grandparents, so on
The
and so
biggest
forth.
thing in sales, and I struggle with
Yeah.
it a lot because I, with ADD and whatnot, I tend to distract very easily. So even when I'm in the process of talking to somebody, I'll be off looking while talking to somebody, and this was a real problem in sales because then it becomes, from a psychology perspective, a lot of times people don't look you in the eye if you can't. It's a trust concern, and then if you're not looking in the eye during a sales transaction, then they can't trust you. Luckily for me, I've always been very, just kind of humble, not a super aggressive salesperson, so I never really struggled with that because I wasn't like trying to dominate somebody into buying a dishwasher. Which you will buy. Well, dude, that's what it is. How are you going to close effectively? How are you going to force this person to change their mind and to psycho manipulate somebody into buying a washer machine? And that's literally what you're doing. Like, they're coming in, looking, asking questions. And luckily, I never had to do that. I was always pretty good at just like, here's what it is. Yeah, it'll wash your clothes. This is what it does.
Yeah.
Cubic foot capacity. What are you doing with it? I mean, asking questions is a big part of sales, right? You gotta, what do you do with it? What are you gonna do with it? How many people in the house? How long did your last one last? Did you put any cement blocks in it? It's crazy, stupid shit.
But that just goes to speak for your style. Like, I mean, there's always different styles of salesmanship. Different styles of
although those guys were
leadership
better. The guys that are like, wheel them and deal them, those guys were better, just hands down. I mean, they talk. You talk to them, likable guy. Wants to know everything about your life. Pretty soon, you're buying the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
He's just like,
And-
oh, this guy's great.
And I think I heard you speak on another podcast about like the guys that maybe you didn't like were the guys that would go in there and just say whatever it was to sell it. Like you were saying that like somebody was saying this washer's going the same speed as a jet engine or
5,600
something
miles.
like that, and like
Oh yeah.
and people would just eat it up. They're like, oh yeah, that's
that's
awesome.
great.
That's great.
That's
I
amazing.
need that. I need that in my house.
You sound like you know what you're talking about, so you obviously do. And that's the same thing with YouTube. Like what Rogan was saying about the guys of the flat Earth, how they can sound so articulate, and because they're just making a video and they can articulate their words very effectively, they can sound very convincing that they're right and they know what they're talking about and that their information is fact. And what it comes down to is just that confidence. And in sales, I think a lot of times, the more confident I became about my product, the better I became at sales. And that happened quickly, only because I was obsessed with learning as much as I could about it because I didn't want to not know. That was always the uncomfortable thing, is uncomfortable silence or not knowing a question and answer. But for me, even if I didn't, I was never the type of guy to pull something out of my ass. It's better to just be like, I don't know. Let me find out. That's a good question. I've never been hit with that one before.
Let me figure this one out.
We learn more from you than we do from our sales, our sales training. People love that. I learn more from customers, and I'm not bullshitting them. That's legit. I actually learn more from customers. But then I told them it, and people ate it up.
Yeah, and
it's just communicating facts.
That's the situational learning is. And being able to admit, like, when you're like, you know what, I don't know that, instead of just coming up with a lie or just exuding pure confidence out of thin air, so to speak. And I mean, there's times to do that. I'm gonna defer to like military stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's just because that's been my experience for the last 10 years. I'm not I'm not necessarily brainwashed. I'm just conditioned, as I like to say. Because I mean, that's been my life for the last 10 years. And growing up, you knew me way back in the day and everything. And like I was saying, I'm sure Justin and I ran into each other at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been here for the last 25
we're
years.
The same circle of people for sure.
Yeah.
I almost guarantee that we all hung
with
out
Devin
at
or
one time or
somebody.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, you look familiar. But I also feel like that anytime that I come back to New England and I see random people and I'm like, you look kind of in my age group. Like, do I know you?
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, the thing about New Hampshire is just so small and close knit that we see a lot of the people. And like, I'll be honest, like I've said this multiple times, like there's parts of me that have this affinity for Rochester, right? Oh, it's always going to be my home in a lot of ways. Like my formative years were spent on fucking Lafayette Street. Like I had real life-changing events in my life at that time there, and I'll always remember it. But there's parts of me that I just have no desire to go back to Rochester and be like, "What's going on, Mark? You got Degoette?" I'm like, oh boy.
Oh god.
Oh boy. Time to get out of Rochester again. Like I seriously stopped and thought I heard somebody from the past that I know is dead. And I'm not gonna drop names because podcasts and all that. But I'm just like, I froze. I touched the door handle and like at the courthouse I had to deal with something related to credit card debt or whatever that was passed on. Unfortunately, that doesn't go to anybody after you die, so I ended up having to go explain an awkward circumstance. You want to see, not to get off topic, you want to see a credit collector get real uncomfortable. You tell them, you're like, they died. Yeah, you just pay it if you can down the road. I'm like, yeah, I'm disabled, and life's been a rocky one. The guy's just like, awkward. So needless to say, I had to walk out of Rochester District Court with like that was a uncomfortable situation. The whole conversation was just a yikes moment. And I go outside and I'm go touch the door of my friend's car, and I heard what I thought was somebody from my past. They're like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, I turned around, like my head like creaked like in a Stephen King novel. I'm like, it wasn't who I thought it was, but I was like convinced. I'm like, I was gonna be like, no, I don't have a cigarette. I'm out of here. I'm leaving Rochester. No, but I mean, look, I think Rochester's. I was talking to Brandon. We were talking about Brandon to Brandon about this Saturday, right? Is that changes? There's positive changes, and it's getting better. I think. I hope.
I mean, it's definitely changed a lot. And I think when I was gone, I think things got worse for a while.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're talking like early 2010s time frame is like when I got out of town, and I spent a lot of time out of town. I mean, I've been living out of town for the last 10 years, so it's been a big difference. But, I still stay plugged in that social media arena and still talk to occasional people and things like that. And like that, what we had in that time era back then too is just completely gone. And I mean, part of that's the people growing up. People grow up, they go different areas,
Oh, totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Some people become more responsible. Other people are probably still doing some of the same things that we allegedly were doing way back in those days.
Right,
too.
right. But I always wonder, it's like when you like, why not? How not getting out of that life? It just seems so like a black hole for some people, and I could almost feel that gravity to some of the people that like I talk to them and they're like, oh, hang out, and then like I talked to a friend who's, well, we'll hang out sometime, we'll jam, whatever, and it's just like hung out with him at his friend's house. He's crashing on his. I'm like, no, this is not an environment that I'm gonna be in.
Right.
I'm not even gonna be in this house right now. Like, I'm just.
But it's like you were shoehorned into it though, because once upon a time that was acceptable.
Yep.
Like that was
totally.
that was a thing.
Right.
Like, and I mean.
And because it was, but now it's like I got a kid at home and all that. I don't want to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. And not that saying that would have been, but I'm overjudging the situation. Maybe I'm a pretentious dick about it, but and I'm
Dude,
sure
I
if the
feel
person
like
that
that
knows
sometimes.
if they're listening, they know exactly who I'm talking about. Is that I'm in that
wake up in my
circumstance.
house.
We're sitting there and it's just like, homeboys nodding off and everything, and like this is obviously like a den. Like I don't want to be here. I don't want anything to do with this, and like this isn't my life. I don't have anything to do with this at this point in my life now, and I'm just gonna bounce. Let's go. It's cool. It was cool to talk to you for 5 seconds, but I don't think we're gonna jam again for a while.
And I was going to mention that too when we're talking about that, is like it seemed in that time period, it's like when the opioid crisis hit, like, I want to half air quote that.
Yeah.
And the New Hampshire's a drug infested den, as it was so
I know, right?
And in a lot of ways I was like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Like that's not like far fetched, because I know there was a lot of pushback, when that was a big main thing.
So I mean, like, because I feel like it's a double-edged sword, because it really is. It's a bad scenario, and it's not a good. New Hampshire's not in a great place with the drug substance problem.
It doesn't look so good.
It doesn't. I mean, you know first. We all know firsthand people that we've lost. Family that we've lost, but I don't think it's just opioids, and I think that's the thing that I think it's and I've discussed this a bunch, is the despair illness factor. Is that people are just things are so rocky and rough right now. People are so depressed, but I don't think it's just economic. I think I go right to economic standpoint all the time, and I don't think it's that either. I think that a lot of our depression and negativity and is the way we're connecting and the device usage, because those are little like. What's neuropinephrine machines, right? Every time you open up Facebook or whatever, those Facebook apps, for anybody who doesn't realize that's listening, those are designed to get daily active users. So if you ever watch Shark Tank, they talk a lot about apps when they're popular. That's great. How many downloads, but how many daily active users do you have? And so
who is seeing those ads every single day on whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's a game or information, news source, whatever it is.
And so they hire people who design casino gambling software to design these social media apps, because they want increased active users, not just social media, not to demonize Facebook, but all apps really. It's all about boom, 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 and getting those little hits of dopamine every time you click on it.
Every time you get the like or the laughy face.
Yeah.
Imagine every time you open up Facebook, like all of a sudden you just get like, you feel like just oxygen pumped at you. And then somebody just walks by and here, free drinks.
Yeah, that's it. It's seriously, I mean, that's the
Log
equivalent
into
of
the
what's
Facebook
happening.
casino real quick.
Yeah, it's
in
weird
there.
because you're in the casino out in Vegas.
You hear a
That's
knock
exactly-
on your door, you're like, I'm in a fucking hotel room. How'd they find me? This is amazing.
Guy standing out there with a syringe of pure norepinephrine. But that's what, every time you use those apps, it's just these heightened, like it's either norepinephrine or dopamine, one of the two, that you get a kick from every single time you're interacting with this app. And now people are instantly going to their Twitter, going to these. The first thing they open their app, they go right to that. They go right to social media. Go right to the. I do it.
Absolutely.
I notice I've done it. You know,
I do
I'm
it
trying
all
to
the time.
decrease that usage as much as possible. But now we're putting these in front of our kids.
Right.
And now the suicide in 10 to 14-year-olds has tripled. And there's a hefty decline in overall happiness in the United States. So I think it's a convergence of things. It's not just, giving everybody $1,000 a month is going to solve the problem. It's certainly not. I think that the device thing is a bigger concern than our economic inequality or any of the stances that people have. I think that really, not to go down that road, but the devices are more of a concern for me than anything. Depression, I think, is being launched exponentially into the psyche of people. Now it's just being, I guess, catalyzed because they're at home alone by themselves watching
And
all
not
their
getting
friends
any air, and
having
not
a great time.
getting any exercise, and just ugh.
Right.
And
grim.
being starved for actual attention. and that face-to-face conversation, and like going out and playing, like you just said, and like you know, feel how you will about sports, but going out and playing sports and things like that, or I mean, you know, on the artistic side, taking art classes or going to play guitar in a band or just whatever the case is, you know, and like it's real easy too that when you start feeling bad, you don't want to go out, you don't want to do things, so then what do? You fall into that social media hole, and then you just start seeing that everybody is amazing and like your life sucks. So I mean,
and the funny thing is all those people's lives are just as shitty as yours. Anybody on the internet just as shitty as yours.
They're trying to do it.
Or not as shitty. Maybe they're getting away from Facebook, but if their lives are getting better, it's probably because they've ditched the social media more than an hour a day or whatever it is.
Hiking videos, videos. I don't know. I just want to see what somebody else is seeing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
My kids watching other kids playing video games.
Yes.
So
fuck.
This was something I learned about probably years ago, and this one blows my mind. Is the unboxing videos? Kids don't go and get toys anymore. They just watch other kids open toys and play with them.
That was my son.
Yeah.
He doesn't do it now because it's changed from that to video games.
Yeah. Okay.
But that was the thing. I want to watch other kids play with toys.
Yeah.
Why? Don't you want those toys? No.
Or
is it that you want
to go play with the neighbor boy that has that toy, or
So I think that's more that. I actually think that it's more that because we never really asked. It was like, why don't you just want to play it? Well, I don't. What it is I think that they just want the interaction with other kids, and that we're walking a dangerous line here by letting our kids have this type of interaction. And I feel guilty because my kid spends way too much time on it. And so for those out there, I definitely don't want people can take it as like a condescending thing. Like, no, my kid is on the internet way more than he should, and I feel guilty about it. And I'm trying to manage life and balance everything. And so don't get down on yourself. Just work in the right direction. That's my always my thing is like,
acknowledging.
Yeah,
just
little bits of positivity in the right direction, and don't beat yourself up when you don't get it all done in one day, right? Or don't get it all done in a year. Little bits. But for me, I guess what I was getting at is that the kids were walking a fine line by allowing them to have these unfettered access to these newer apps that we really don't understand how it's going to the impact of the psyche of human beings. Shit, we didn't know the impact to our bodies with microplastics until now.
Yes.
And it's too late. Every human being has microplastics in their body everywhere in the world. Tribes in like undiscovered parts of the United States found with microplastics in their bodies, like and not the United States, the world.
Right.
Undiscovered tribes of the United States. You mean all of the ones that were removed from their land?
Oh yeah.
Did you hear that on the Rogan thing? Like he was talking about if you get a chance,
I just know that it's
most
not
recent
good.
One. I had no idea. I guess it was as bad as it was, for me to be ignorant or not. I really like.
And I'm in the dark about this. Like I'm listening to you talk about microplastics with such passion right now, and I'm just like, yeah, that sounds awful. But I know nothing about that.
Well, so no,
I don't.
So now we're going on like a complete tangent because I was talking about tribes in the United States as if there are any left, because of the genocide. But I had no idea of how we really impacted the Native American cultures all over North America, and not just us either. And it's like, and I understand this could get controversial. Don't want it to be, but it won't be for you because I'm the one breaking out on the limb here. That the Black Lives Matter thing. It's like, yeah, I get that, but what about the Native Americans? I mean, what about that? We've decimated other cultures, not just slavery culture, and I would say what we did to the Native Americans is probably even not going to say worse, but comparatively worse. It's horrible. Their entire culture is gone forever, pretty much, in some pockets. Well, I guess where I was going with that is that I was watching Rogan, and he just started because he was interested in bison hunting and was reading a book about that, which in some ways tangentially dragged him into learning about I think the Navajo, or I don't remember what tribe it was. Comanche, that's what it was, the Comanche, because of their warlike
right. I lived
culture.
amongst the Comanche for a few years when I was stationed at Fort Sill.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Comanche Nation's still pretty big out there.
So that's fascinating. So you've had kind of a little bit of experience with.
Yeah,
this is for me completely alien because I
never really dived into it too much, but like Fort Sill was a big outpost back during westward expansion and things like that. And they've always had a presence there. And I mean, those of us that know a little bit about history, I mean, we know Oklahoma was originally founded as a Indian territory. And, you know, there was a lot of people that were marched there against their will, and there was people that were already living there, and so on and so forth. And I don't want to go out and talk too much about it, because I don't want to misrepresent facts, because
right.
I'll be the first
It's
one to admit that I don't know everything about it.
Right, but you know more about it than I do, because I've never
seen
outside of reading.
Right. I mean, they have casinos. There's an Apache casino and a Comanche casino there, and they've gotten some of my money throughout the years. So sitting at
They
their
got my money
tables.
if I was there too, man.
And there's reservations out there, and you know they have their own area out there. Never go out there personally, but I mean I knew plenty of people that would go and interact on the reservation areas out there, and some would have positive things to say, others would have negative things to say. I mean, just like all things in life. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
The thing that I was just so, you know, kind of floored by is that we not only do we like eliminate entire cultures, but then when we kind of bottleneck them, like we didn't like follow up on any of them after their any of their communities. And aside from the ability of wealth and again I'm speaking from no knowledge about this at all other than what a little bit that I've read recently, and this was only sparked because of, you know, the knowledge, you know, spiral that I ended up in after listening to Rogan, was that their communities, almost all of them are impacted by these types of despair illnesses like we're talking about in New Hampshire, alcoholism, just as prevalent as opioids. That's what I was gonna say earlier, that I never got to get to that point, because welcome to Abstract Transmission.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just going on a tangent.
Real.
Is that
Things will always come from full circle, though.
Right. Well, sometimes I'll even remember about that. But yeah, I guess my point there is that they're getting impacted by these despair illnesses, I think, just as bad, if not more, than anybody else, because their entire communities have been literally decimated, cultures decimated, and to the point now where they're still, I think, recovering in a lot of ways now. How as a society, like the discussion is do we owe them? You know, we're talking about reparations for slavery. Well, what about reparations for Native American communities too? Like, there's just a lot of discussions, I think, there. Anyway, not to go back to the opioid thing. I feel like a lot of people bring up opioids all the time as like despairless. People things are bad, but alcoholism is, dare I say, as bad, if not worse, but not.
Oh, it's pretty sneaky too.
And
yeah. Especially as we get older too. Like when we were younger, like, you know, going to a party and having a couple drinks, it was cool. It was the fun. It was the hip thing to do.
True.
But like now we're like approaching.
I drink 3 beers and my blood sugar's up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And like, you know, we're approaching middle age, and now, you know, I mean, I still like to drink, and I'm on vacation right now, so you know, I'm probably doing a little drinking.
Yeah.
My first stop in New Hampshire was the New Hampshire State Liquor Store. You know,
Absolutely.
they put it conveniently right there on Route 95.
Oh yeah,
So
We didn't get to. I was gonna make that point yesterday, or not yesterday. Last episode.
I remember, you were gonna.
I was gonna point that out because he's like, right when we come to the border, I'm like, yeah, isn't that convenient that, you know, prohibition, right, about cannabis, but as soon as you come to the border, boom, New Hampshire liquor.
Makes me think of Granite State of Mind.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think it's Super Secret Project.
Yeah. That rap. Is that Jay-Z? Yeah.
I feel like I remember hearing that. That's fairly old at this point.
Yeah,
now, though,
it's like
right?
10 years ago.
It's weird. It's 10 years. It's been 10 years.
Oh my god. Sorry.
It's wild.
But trying to bring it back though, so when we were younger, you know, there was alleged drug use, and there was, you know, things were around, but like we were young, and it's like the same people that are out there now, probably, you know, living a similar life or
eating
thinking
Tide
it's
Pods.
cool, this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, eating Tide Pods, who knows? But like,
Whatever the new jam is.
I mean,
Robitussin for us, Tide Pods for them.
Well, like,
Complete poison for them.
heroin and pills were around, and I don't know if it was just our group, but I felt like it was a greater sense of like, gotta stay away from that. That's not. That's not anything you want to be around. That's not something you want to mess with.
It's true.
And like,
I mean, most of us, like,
yeah,
friends allegedly smoked grass. Like, but that was, we smoked a lot of ganja, but shit, it wasn't like it is nowadays. And now it's legal in a lot of areas. Like,
How is it?
marijuana-
Yeah, New Hampshire hasn't jumped on that board yet. And
No.
I follow that a little bit in the
I'm a
legislature and
therapeutic
everything.
cannabis
but,
patient, so
Yeah.
because of the defects in my ankles. But I was really lucky in that aspect right when it came out of the gate, because there was a lot. They wouldn't, like, they'd let me have it, but they wouldn't let somebody who had PTSD and like severe, like, I was like, no, that's they should definitely have, and that's changed now in New Hampshire. They were really restrictive. Now it's gotten loosened up a little bit, because they found, obviously, it's not making things worse, it's making things better. The opioid use has decreased by like 24% according to the CDC, and because there's a study somebody did recently from New Hampshire. Like, there's been, just in New England alone, maybe not New Hampshire, I think it was New England, because New England Medical Journal,
down in Mass.
that it dropped by like 24% of the, just by having the recreational and in the, it was New England, because they were counting recreational as a facet. In New Hampshire, it hasn't dropped as much, I think, because it's still, you have to get a card, which I think that for me alone, I was on 120 milligrams of oxycodone daily.
And I've heard you talk about that too. Yeah.
That's a lot of opioids, and I was using cannabis, but I've been able to decrease, because I've been able to use more cannabis. I can buy it legally. I can use it. The topical medication is fucking amazing. It's like my feet ate edibles. The problem is like it costs too much money. So I'm relying right now on gabapentin and tramadol, and I use that as if I could get away from it entirely, I would. But that's also a real mess of how they treat pain patients, because now, because of the opioid crisis, they've bracketed people who are genuinely dealing with like major pain scales, weaning them off of these medications. People with cancer getting kicked out of pain treatment places.
Oh yeah.
I don't give a fuck about the DEA. I'm sorry. People are dying and then killing themselves because they're in so much pain. Like, we had more suicides because of pain. People who couldn't manage their pain in New Hampshire than ever before this in the last 2 years.
And they just go to the streets for their medication as well.
Well, that's it. They start getting heroin off the street.
And it's like,
when it's cheaper and it's more readily available,
you can get it cheaper than you can buy the medication that is better for you. Technically, it's chemically designed to, whatever with your body. Then it also bloats the problems for the local police. I think Brandon was talking about this being a state rep. He talked to so many people, just like Andrew Yang was saying when he came up through here. He talked to people in jails that say it would be cheaper for us to pay people to stay out of jail. It costs us more money as a state to keep them in jail than it's to get them out and get them on programs and all this stuff. He was like, at this point right now, with people going into jail, we're just exacerbating the issue by criminalizing opioids, by decriminalizing, and a lot of times what they're saying is just those people would be seeking treatments and trying to get help. When you beat them with a stick about it, it's just it's adding that. And I feel like this is everything, right? The positive outlook versus the negative outlook. Even when we were talking about with my son, like, I try, everything is, that's okay, it's just an opportunity for things to get better. Have the attitude that people can take care of themselves, they can be responsible for themselves and their bodies, but give them the resources to do so. Don't put them in jail for
that's
selling drugs that get other people killed is a different story.
Right, and that's what was it in New York right now, where they did the parole or the bail. They've changed the rules on that, and it's like and if you look at the comprehensive list of it, and I can't remember all of it, but like you look at it, and some of those things you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Why are we going to throw somebody in jail for that? But then, like, you're talking about, like, some of those things were, like, attempted murder and, like, actual violent crime. And you're like, and it applies to them, too. The same rule applies to the common drug user that would apply to somebody that committed a violent crime. Like, where is the balance? Like, and I know that's just one state, but it is something that's getting talked about a lot. And some of those instances are like, yeah, but like, just who makes the decisions on the extremes? Like, it's just, it makes it hard to comment.
Yeah, I agree.
Oof, yeah.
Like,
the thing that it makes me think of is I was thinking about the voting thing, about how I made a comment that I feel like people, criminals should be able to vote. And I do, but I don't. So I'm going to revise my statement. I kind of side with Yang on this, is that people should be allowed to vote in jail unless they rob somebody else's right to do so by taking their life away or their ability to vote. I don't think that somebody in jail for, you know, a gun possession charge or something like that. Now, if they used a violent crime to inflict pain that would cause somebody else to lose their right to vote also, like attempted murder or something like that also, I think that those are, you know, should be excluded because you're trying to take somebody else's right away to vote. But I think by making wrong decisions, robbing a bank or whatever, that shouldn't take away our ability to vote. But again, this kind of went in the more political direction I guess I wanted it to. My thing was that it just made me think of that as that who makes those decisions and the deciding factors here.
And I think that's a pretty good common ground, middle ground. You know, I'm obviously not a felon, and so I've never had to be in that position where it's like, well, how do I get my right to vote back, or how do I get you know, my right to self-defense back? Like, how do I go through it? And I don't know if there is a process, if there is one, or
if it's super hard. Like, I don't know if maybe when you get out and you're
depending on your felony, I think you can have it expunged after a certain
So
period
can you not
of time.
vote if you're a felon?
I think it depends state to state.
So New Hampshire, I wonder if that's now I'm interested to find that out because I really haven't looked too much into New Hampshire. It was one thing that kind of caught my attention, and then I remember hearing, you know, his position on it. So I was like, oh no, that makes a lot of sense because I feel like it's important for us to be able to make decisions about our government regardless of our position in society, except for under certain circumstances.
Right, and it all comes down to that certain circumstances because, you know, a felony is a felony, and you got to have standards. You got to have a point of, like, no return, so to speak, I guess. But, I mean, there's a big difference between, like, I wrote a bad check, and I did it on purpose. I did it knowingly. Yeah. And, you know, it's probably a lower felony, but it's a felony.
Right.
Yeah.
And, like, somebody that went out and murdered somebody.
Right.
Like, and I know extremes, but, like,
or even
how
just
you're not the same.
Yeah,
it's not the same offense.
Even if
it's
somebody
it's
brought a gun
wrongdoing.
into a hospital to threaten a bunch of people because he was panicking about losing medication, he's putting other people's lives at risk. Regardless of that circumstance, I feel like that's still a criminally threatening circumstance.
It is.
And I don't know. This is make believe person's backstory, right? I just made him up. Yeah. But say he's got a bad scenario and he's under bad times. I still feel like he could have cost other people's lives. Negligence is not an excuse.
If the gun wasn't loaded.
Yeah, I know. See, it gets gray area, right? That's a problem with all laws
Still
in general.
Makes a horrible example.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's terrible.
And I mean, I know we're trying to use, like, you know, we're coming with hypotheticals, but we're also using, like, you know, exceptions to prove the
real
rule
life scenario
at the same time, which is something you really can't do either.
Yeah.
But I mean, but that comes up in common conversation because it's the emotional reaction to something. Mm-hmm. So, like, we know when you're considering, you know, political things and just, you know, just right and wrong, like, you know, people always want to be like, it's either you know, it's a polar choice. It's either a yes or a no, or it's a black and a white. It's an up or it's a down. Yeah. It's not always there.
Right.
However, at some point, there's a line, you know. And
I think that gray area becomes more and more prevalent, and where, you know, again, not to get too far into that direction, but we're stirring up the political landscape, and people are all over the place because people are, you know, they're open. Well, I think communication's a big factor. Like, even out in, like, Hong Kong and stuff like that, like the fact that basic communication, the ability for us to all to communicate at all times in the access of all the world's information in front of you is a superpower in a lot of ways. We take it all for granted, but it is a mega superpower compared to 100 years ago. It's fucking wild what we can do with our phones. Like, I gotta freaking talk about Swiss Army knife. This thing, it's got a scale in it. Like, I can measure things with the pressure of the screen, which is amazing. I didn't know I could do that until just yesterday.
Oh yeah, I don't know half the things my phone can do. Like, that's just because
that's it. How does it even work?
Yeah,
I lost my mind the other day trying to figure out how it could possibly use pressure sensitivity to measure a scale. Like, but there is pressure sensitivity on these newer, like, iPhones and stuff. I've dropped it so many times I don't think it's accurate, probably. But yeah, that'll go right in the trash in 2 years is the life of these phones nowadays, right? That's what people get upset when I sold appliances about their $800 washer, but $1,200 phones, and they'll throw that in the trash in 2 years when they drop it on the ground. that's crazy. I don't want to spend more than $300 for my washer machine. Like,
Now, what was the demographic of the people that were like that, though? Is the real question.
You know
Did
what?
it vary?
It varies.
It varied?
It is always a different type of person. Like,
Because in my mind, I picture like my mom or like one of my grandparents coming in and being like, "What do you mean I got to spend this and it's only going to last that time?"
And sometimes you have those, but sometimes you have people that are loaded and they could buy whatever, but they're like, "No, I want the cheapest, crappiest thing because I'm just going to replace it again." Or you want the guy that I want it to be as cheap as can be, but I also want it to last for 25 years. And usually the guys that have the money that are receptive are the ones that I would sell. Well, when I was at Barron's, I could sell Speed Queen. That thing is a fucking amazing machine. And I don't sell washing machines anymore, but anybody on the market, they're getting our abstract transmission seal of approval. They do make the best goddamn washing machine, period.
Okay.
Top load washers, 5-year, 7-year warranty comes with right out of the gate, and they last for 25 years. They're not efficient. Not really at all. Well, they are comparatively to their older machines, but their machines are made like a tank. It's phenomenal what those machines can do. And their front loads, if you can get a front load unit, they only make them stacked that you can buy in the consumer market, as far as I know. Just the stacked unitized piece. But it's a front loader, and it is efficient. But those things are also 25 years, 5-year warranty, $3,200 machine. But it's never going to break. And when it does break, somebody come and fix it always.
For you. Yeah.
And then it'll last you another 25 years probably. These things are ridiculous.
Did I show you I'm pretty sure I did. You know, the KitchenAid
yes
dryer that I have that still works.
Yeah. That thing, dude, you just keep repairing that fucking thing. It's going to work forever.
Yeah, it's insane.
Dryers are dryers.
It's funny that I'm enjoying this, but at the same time, one of the things I was going to say before we started was like, all right, we're not going to talk about appliances.
Right.
And I was just going to say that because it creeps into every show. But it's about...
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Creeps into all of your podcasts. But I understand, though, because just like I said, like...
How did I not notice that?
I'll revert things back to the military just because that's been my life for the last 10 years. And that was a part of your life that you talked about for a long time.
10
and like,
years.
we got that mindset. You got that mindset. So it happens.
No. And that's so funny, though. I'm glad you said that because I had no idea how often I actually bring it up because I'm like, fuck appliances. Because I do feel like that. But then there's a part of me that, like, if something comes up, I'll go into somebody's house. I'll look at their kitchen right out of the gate. It's the first thing I do. Because I look, KitchenAid dishwasher.
That's a good dishwasher.
That's a nice looking dishwasher. Yeah, you got a Bosch there, yeah. It's terrible because I still do that. But it's one of those things, like you said, you can't shake some of those things.
Yeah, you can't get away from
Consumer electronics, if I still worked at Radio Shack, probably still be doing that.
Yeah. But
glad I never stayed with that because that would have been... I would have lost my fucking mind trying to sell consumer electronics.
I think, too, in some ways, too, like an appliance store. I don't know the company you work for exactly. I mean, I know some of the stuff you talked about, but, I don't want to plug anybody either. So,
yeah, no, it's okay.
Just like, if you need a washer or dryer, that's not something that's like, oh, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to go look at the washers and dryers. No, it's like, shit, mine's broken. I need to go get one. So, like, people probably walk through the door and they're like, hey, it's dying, I need it, or I couldn't get it repaired. Yeah. The guy came and said it was going to cost $700, and I was like, oh, well, I better just go buy a new one.
Yep.
So, like, the salesmanship is there still for you to close the deal, but at the same time, like, people are there because they want it.
That's true.
It's not because they want it, it's because they need it.
You just hit the nail on the head is why I even stayed in that fucking industry. Because I could sell stuff because they're always going to need to buy things. It's not one of those things that's variable. People are always buying appliances every day of the year.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of how effective you are convincing them you're the best guy to buy it from.
Right.
And for me, it was just, I overwhelmed them with knowledge until they either left or stayed. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I did do that for many years. Half of my appliance career, I did not know really when to shut up. I still don't. but it worked. It worked sometimes. I mean, it did when they could see that I genuinely... I've never had a malicious feeling, even when I hated you selling your appliance. If it was a person, I hated that person. I hate you, Mr. Appliance Person. I still always sold them the thing that I would buy and suggested the things that I would buy and never upsold them things that I didn't think were good value.
Well, that's how you sleep, and you end up with a clear conscience from doing the job. So you didn't have to do anything that was like...
I also never made a crazy amount of money doing that either.
Right.
There's guys making... triple what I was making, literally triple annually what I was making, that could walk the walk and talk the talk, and they just didn't spend as much time with their customers. Some of them were could care less. Really, they don't buy whatever you fucking want. I don't give a shit.
And that has to do with your personality and what you think you're good at and where you fit into the world. Like what you think you can do and live with yourself and half enjoy. Like, I mean, nobody's gonna enjoy their job 100% of the time, or really it wouldn't be work completely. Now, I know that there's an argument to be had there for some things, but
no, Anthony Bourdain, go right back to Dave Chappelle on that. He was right. Motherfucker had the best goddamn job and he died. The guy at Foot Locker. That was hilarious. Anyway, no, even then, like, you can't always 100% be happy in life, and you got to find your balance. And right now, like, I'm trying really hard to find a balance between, you know, all of this and band and being a parent full time. But it's like, if, you know, I wasn't in the exact circumstance that I'm in now, I wouldn't be able to do those things and balance those things out. And that's not, you know, that's without disability. Like, I'm on disability now. Survivor benefits are keeping us floating until, you know, keep things going, you know.
Yeah.
And that's with putting money aside for Gavin. Like, it's been tight. It's been tight around the house lately. But I believe in that. Work is the future of work now is not what it was for us. When we were growing up, I was told to go to college. Well, no. The future of jobs tomorrow are going to be trades. Yep. If you're passionate about it, or becoming a YouTube personality, or making a podcast, or bakery, that's why I'm such an advocate. I keep on going back to the artist community thing, because I think the artisans are going to, drive a new era in work. I think that certain things are going to be exempt from that, of course. Military being one of them.
And I've heard you talk about that too before. And, like, you know, as soon as you say that, I just think to every little yuppie shop in Portsmouth and Dover.
All the hipsters. The ones that smell like patchouli oil when you walk through the door.
All the little downtowns that are like, I don't know what you're paying for rent here, but how are you surviving selling some weird bread for... like a loaf of bread for $20.
Do it though. They survive it.
Some of them survive, and then other ones go out of business. Hey, I saw that coming. Like, I mean, come on.
It's Portsmouth downtown rent.
Yeah. Can I pay you
even think that was a good
mustache?
idea? Yeah. The Water Monkey. No offense, guys, but how the hell did you guys stay there all these years, this long?
Hey, selling tie dye and Shea shirts, like, you know.
That's it.
That was it.
They're killing it.
Yeah.
Must be. Or they got a solid, you know, hemp business on the side. I don't know. Just kidding, guys. Those guys. I mean, I still go down there and buy my ridiculous sunglasses.
It's funny.
I buy the biggest sunglasses I can find down there. It's for like $5.
It's good to know that place is there. I remember, you know, back in the early 2000s in high school, that was the place to go. Like, let's go to Portsmouth. It was, you know, Bull Moose, which is still there. I'm pretty sure, right?
The Rubber Tree, if you're 18.
You should take the bus from.
Does the Rubber Tree still exist?
Lilac Mall. Over there.
Yeah.
I feel bad being a New Englander not knowing if a local business exists, but the Rubber Tree, do they stay afloat in the economy?
I'm not sure. That's one I haven't heard of in a long time.
Check it out.
That's wild though to think about a lot of those places like Treehouse Toys. And again, niche, but they are able to stay there because I think Portsmouth is that area where you can do that. Right. And if we were to expand that type, I think that we could actually have that type of yuppie wealth exponentially grow. Everybody's got a man bun now.
Right.
Man bun, 2 man buns.
It's like what was that, the Dose Trump thing where he's got a beard and a man bun? It's somebody photoshopped a man bun.
I've seen that.
He looked pretty good with a beard, man. I'm not gonna lie. Just saying, no hate. I'm all for the beard Trump.
But now, kind of bringing that around, sort of same business idea is like in Rochester is a revolving door downtown, and like how, like I said, how do these little artisan shops, you know, stay in business in a place like Portsmouth? I know there's a lot more walking around and everything like that, but then like some legitimate businesses like, you know, restaurants, bars, you know, cake shops, bakeries, things like that just go out of business so quickly.
I'll tell you exactly.
And it's gotten better from what I've seen since I left.
Disposable income, period.
Yeah, you're just saying less people have disposable income here in Rochester.
Disposable income in Rochester, and they're not driving as far north until, you know, you've got Bike Week and stuff, and then you have all that
right.
drives.
You got the summer tourism stuff.
So we have our
like
cyclical business up around in the sticks here. But downtown in yuppie Portsmouth, it's like year-round they have friggin' juice shops that stay afloat and fucking vegetarian restaurants. And it works. Like, but at the same time, place like Susty's, a vegetarian vegan restaurant in Northwood, I personally love their food there, really good. It's totally a niche thing if you're vegetarian or even like vegan cuisine. Once in a while, they've got great food. But to stay afloat, not being in Portsmouth, and not even being in walking traffic, like how do they stay there? I mean, they've got to own the place or something.
Right.
Because to your point, places in Rochester struggle. I mean, geez, I can't imagine what it's been like for, small businesses like even Jetpack and Skeleton, staying in a community, adding to the community, a vibrancy to the community. If it wasn't for those businesses, I think that Rochester would be worse off.
Right.
You know what I mean? Specifically Jetpack.
I mean, that's a great example. I mean, whatever your personal feelings about, everybody over there, that all that aside, it's a...
I'll always love Rochester in my heart.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a great business because it's filling that niche. They're not really totally competing against other people, and they're doing well. And from the things that I've read is like there's been times where either the city's giving them a hard time over things, or like the people that own those buildings are giving them a hard time over things, which is I think another factor to those businesses, especially the smaller businesses, staying in business down there. Because like I come back to town like maybe once a year, twice a year, in the last 10 years. And it's just weird sometimes seeing businesses is completely vacant down there.
I just think about like the charge of income. Like if we were just flood a bunch of money into Rochester, what it would do for somebody like Rochester. And that's always my argument. And again, I know I keep coming back to that the UBI thing, but like it makes me think about, like, I think about my community, 150 mobile homes, a lot of 55 plus, and then you have 1.5 person people in the home, not an actual half a person.
1.5 people.
Well, the half is the dog or the pet,
head in the
There we
fridge.
go. See, that's what I'm thinking. We can, for the dog owners out there, we'll count your dogs as people.
Yeah.
I know they do.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, they're a child, because that's exactly what it's like to have a kid. Being sarcastic. Just kidding. I'm joking. I do think that dogs are like little kids, but we'll go into that. That's 150 homes, $1,000 a month, $225,000 a month, just in my little mobile home community, Rochester, New Hampshire. What type of benefit of charging a place with money, with floods of money to that area? Now the concern is obviously inflation, but when you have a strong free market economic system, I feel like that combats that. As long as you keep the governments the fuck out of free economic systems, you let companies do their thing, don't force them to have health care, don't force them to hire people, and people can also make their own bakeries. Like a family of two, they have the money to create a bakery in Rochester, create it to reinforce that, and then also hire people that can either choose to do that job part-time and focus on their artistic career. I just feel like exponentially for small communities like Somersworth, Rochester, that are struggling in that. It's where my mind goes from that. We talk a lot about these swaths, because New England's not the same as the rest of the country. We still are doing okay considerably compared to areas of the United States that are completely decimated by factory jobs leaving, entire communities leaving, small towns that are, maybe were 7,000 people now are like 3,000 people. People leave those towns.
And I mean, every region of the country is different. They've got their own localisms. They've got the soul of the area, so to speak. Like, people are different everywhere, which you talked about too, which I did want to touch on at one point, actually.
No, yeah.
Now, okay, so I grew up New England, obviously, you know that, right here. I'm a friggin' New Englander through and through. I love New Hampshire. I mean, friggin' New Hampshire, you know? Yeah. So, like... I'm
getting one of those eventually.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Just had to flash my New Hampshire tattoo real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
love this state.
So anyway, though, now, and I always felt, a very like, I felt like, just proud of being from New England, being from New Hampshire, and like kind of would just,
Same.
shit on the rest of the country because fuck them, they're not New
free
England.
Or die.
Yeah, exactly. But then like I got out of the area for a while and went to other places. I lived in Oklahoma, I lived in South Carolina, I lived in New York, and visited places all over this country and things like that. And a lot of the things that people in New England say about other parts of the country that, like, we just sitting right here bagging on the South or, bagging on California, it's not necessarily true.
Not accurate.
And, like, You know,
No, I found that too when I went to Florida. I mean,
because
to be
I've heard you
fair-
bag on Florida a bunch of times, and I've always said the same thing in certain ways about Florida is that it's a place that I love to visit, but I don't want to live there.
So, and I should be fair to Florida because there were some really good experiences I had in Florida, but I'm not gonna say the negative, but the ones that are memorable that didn't jive with my New Hampshireite personality, I guess, were enough to be out of there. And then there's some bad memories, like a flat out racist getting pissed off because I held a door for a black woman. Like that was, and then because I was gonna mouth off to him, my dad's like, "Nope."
Yeah, don't do it.
Did you see the rebel flag and the gun rack in that dude's car? Just
And
look
that's
the other way, man.
Yeah.
And I know those people exist, and that's a thing. I know it is.
But it's not.
But it's not representative of the whole.
It isn't.
And but as a New Englander, that's what you think.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, the
Everybody
Carolinas,
in the
Georgia,
South.
Florida, they're all a bunch of evil racists and waving their Confederate
No,
flag.
there's some serious liberal,
like-
like hard left people in the South. Like, and I met quite a few in Florida that I would say that even they're like, what? You're able to guns? I mean, New Hampshire has. It's funny because New Hampshire and Florida are similar about guns in a way.
Yeah,
they also reciprocate gun.
The permit, but now we don't need a permit up here anymore.
No, but you can still get one for reciprocity for outside. If
It's a handful of states, so it's not too many. I looked into it when
it's 5.
a couple of different places that
Florida's
I was at,
one
yeah.
of them. Maine isn't. Oh, actually, no. Maine is now because they have I forgot they do. No concealed carry and requirements.
So
in
is Maine constitutional carry now too?
constitutional
Okay,
carry
very
now?
nice.
Finally, this was like a year ago that they changed it.
Wow.
And
So-
it went from one to the other.
So
Sorry.
a point I wanted to make, maybe kind of bombastic, but I'm going to say it anyway. So I lived in South Carolina for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, in some respects, the birthplace of the Confederacy. They don't fly the battle flag over the State House anymore. And I lived in Columbia, and there's more. I live in an area that there's more black people than white people, and the white people are the minority, but they're still there, and it's not really a racial thing that I'm going for right now. But I wanted to make the comment is that in my time in South Carolina, there's still those people that are out there waving the Confederate flag, but I feel I've seen more Confederate flags in the backwoods of Maine living here in New England
And you do down there
than I did down in the South.
Abso-freaking-lutely.
And
I'm glad you brought that up.
That blew my mind.
Because I never really put that out there when I talked about Florida. And it's really good that you brought that up. That's so very accurate. I see, still to this day,
Take a ride
way
to Walmart.
more
You'll see
rebel flags, way more love for Ely here than down anywhere in the South. Really. I mean, yeah, of course it exists. People are proud of being in the South.
But
And
and
it's-
then that's what I wonder. Are they transplants from the South, or did they just somehow grow up in New England?
No, they're fucking
with
Pantera
just-
fans, period.
Just
they
that's
just
all
like
it is?
Pantera
Just
once.
Cowboys from Hell. That's
That's
all
it. They're
is.
like Cowboys from
Okay,
Hell, and they got
all
a
right.
rebel flag.
Oh, okay.
Fucking Steve Macy, never been to the South once in his life. Love you, Steve, but he's been to the South once. I'm just kidding. I agree, because I mean, hey, look, I think that there is a lot of people out there that are up here that absolutely have no ties to the South, no family from the South, but they have an affinity for what it means to be from the Confederate Army,
be a rebel.
to be a rebel. Well, see, so my whole thing is with that, and I think people mistake the Confederacy or the whole, because the Confederacy versus the Union, right? And the Union, the goal was to keep the Union together, and the Confederacy wanted to have their own separate states. They wanted to keep states' rights, which also included slavery, but that
Which was the number one, and that's the argument
So
that I
that's-
don't like hearing.
Yeah.
And I know it's
I was
the
gonna say,
argument that's
it's not
mostly
number
made
one,
by
though.
people that want to have that argument is that they're like, oh, it wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights. Well, name number one was that you wanted to retain
States'
the
rights
ability to have slaves, to
because of states'
enslave
rights.
human beings.
Yeah.
And like
But not all of
it was
the-
listed higher
Yeah.
than any of their issues
That's
in
true.
any of the articles of succession that you'll look at. It'll all be stated higher than any of the other stuff. Problems with the federal government and things
Right.
like that. And that's how the argument gets spun when
Right.
you start talking about that topic and the people wanting to defend it, and like there's so much history to it.
Yeah.
And like
So, I mean, it's good, because I like to
Yeah.
look at it from both sides, and I'm always like, well, yeah, they lost, so you can go ahead and wave around the failed war flag all you want. But
Oh, yeah.
They lost. Sorry, guys. We are the United States now, and they lost. So, for that reason, we have a federal government that controls the states. And whether you agree with that or not, it is what we live in now. I still have an anarchy sign tattooed on my fucking arm from when I was a kid. Okay? Shit changes. Done and done, man.
I mean, you grow up and you learn.
I still have my passion about anti-government aspects. At the same time, I believe in government, and I feel that I am a patriot to this country, and I would never leave this country. When I was younger, I would, rah, 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 leave us, go to Canada. No, this country is the greatest country on the planet, and to me, and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. But we got work to do. That's all.
I mean, and that's...
But we can do it together.
But it's living and it's together, and
That's
we
it.
can have these conversations, and that's well within our rights. Like you can't.
Yep.
We could.
Not everywhere in the world you can have these conversations.
Right.
You can have them in this little
And
setting. Could we be talking into microphones while we're doing it? Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like that would become a problem.
That would become
and
a
even
real
some,
fucking problem.
and that's even true in some of the more
Right north.
more freer
Canada.
places.
You do not have free speech in Canada.
Yeah.
You just.
But you do. You have the illusion of it. You can say anything you want until you start. No, I don't want to say offending, but you start offending.
I
people.
can't call somebody a racial slur in Canada. Not that I want to.
Right.
But you're going to get arrested. I can't call somebody a horrible name because I'm freaking angry at them. And not that I should. But you definitely don't have the right to say you can't. Freedom of speech is the most important thing in my opinion. And it does... Oh boy, this is where I put a line in the sand. The left really isn't a big fan of me, but I don't think that freedom of speech I think freedom of speech is far more important than anybody's right to feelings of safety. Safety and security is an illusion. At any moment, our entire planet could get taken out by a space rocket. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of miles an hour, and we wouldn't even have a clue because we've got a ton of defense funding.
And most of us would be dead before we even knew anything.
Right,
happened.
before the sonic boom even happened. We're done.
I'm offended.
But, I mean,
Right.
there's lots of things that could cause mass catastrophe that are more within the realm of reason.
Well,
I mean,
and I
like the
guess
coronavirus is pretty
that's
prevalent at the moment. But like,
that's terrifying.
and I mean, some unknown virus or bacteria or something like that that's unknown to us it could very easily spread.
But right,
And
there's no promise of security and safety in this world.
And that's what I was trying to get at is just that anything like that could collapse the illusion of the government because like we don't. It's like we see the government every day, but we don't necessarily. Some people feel like the government's in their life, and I mean, I work for the government, so take that for what it is.
Yeah.
But like, it's not.
It's not.
It's not there in your face every single
what
day.
people think.
The government's not sitting in this room with us, and I mean, it would be quite a stretch to try and say some municipality or this, that, or the other thing is steering exactly what we're doing
I think
right
it's a
now.
concern about the mass surveillance thing, but what they don't realize is that it's just mass collection, and it's not. And I'm not saying things are okay, and we won't go into that because I know that starts to. The point that I'm making is that people think that nobody's trying to listen to you, watch Wizards of Waverly Place in your underwear eating Cheerios. Like, dude, nobody cares. Whatever your weird thing is, nobody's watching you doing that. And even if they're actively recording it or it was, you can only blame the companies that do it. It's Google and Amazon and iPhone, and these are the companies that are recording your stuff. The enablers. They're the only ones that even allow that data to exist to begin with. So when people get uproarious about the government, like Edward Snowden says, it's like, no, I think what about your individual personal companies that you're signing? Because people sign away their terms and conditions faster than they can sneeze, dude. They're just like, well, yeah, quick to my app. Yeah. I'll become the human centipod or whatever from South Park. Like, yeah, people will sign away whatever just so they can get to Candy Crush. Like, so we talk about know your rights and do your research and all that stuff. I say do your research frequently only because I am a loser and spend so much time reading stuff that doesn't matter that I'm like, do your research. But in reality, nobody. Yeah, I read to an unhealthy amount. It starts to be an unhealthy obsession. But
and sometimes too, like I sometimes hate that response. Like, you just need to do your research. You would think the way I thought if you did your research. But that's possibly not. Maybe you and I read the same thing. We just interpreted it differently. And we're just having a face-to-face conversation about maybe what we think about it or something like that.
And I think that's okay. But when people chime in and they have no weighing on it, it's like, but you obviously haven't researched it at all, and that I'm okay with not everybody knows everything. Like I can't know everything about everything.
But back to our phones, we have the completion of human knowledge at our fingertips once again. But which can also be slighted in different directions. Vocabs.
But as long as as long as you're trying to like find out about it. My problem is when people they go and they say like, screw you about circumcision. It's like, no, I've actually done the research, and circumcision really is kind of an archaic thing. Say what you want about it, but medically it's kind of unnecessary in a lot of ways, and there's different arguments and this and that. But when people come on and they go, well, no, that's just not true. It's like, okay, you could argue for it, but you can't argue for it and then not have done research for your argument for it.
I mean,
that's my thing.
Ultimately, it's an aesthetic thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
bingo.
If we want to talk about circumcision,
nobody does.
That came out of nowhere right there. But.
Well, it's a hot topic on the internet. But that was one that I thought popped out because, like you said, there's it's purely aesthetic, but people have their feelings about it. But the feelings aren't facts. The same way biology. And that goes into the whole. We won't go into that tangent. We don't want to anger people. But I am very much on the side of science. As science, we can't say science for one thing like global warming and then throw it out the window for biology. So I think that there's a lot of studies, but studies aren't science. Studies are I studied this, and nobody else has yet. Or sometimes a few other people have. You gotta look into what the study was, how many people did. Was it double blind? Was it peer reviewed? Study says I will become a mouse in 5 years.
The study said it though.
It said it. It's on the
I
internet.
will become a mouse.
I will become a mouse.
An actual mouse.
My whole body will transform and shrink.
Be like that Witches movie.
Oh,
remember the kid just starting?
Yeah, they turn all the kids into mice, and all the witches were grabbing them up.
Honestly,
that was a great childhood movie right there.
Definitely, really spooky too.
Oh yeah,
facts become an important factor because I do believe that objective truth, like Neil deGrasse Tyson argues, an objective truth versus personal truths versus, that becomes it's a tough one. We don't have enough time for that one, folks.
Yeah, exactly. And like we can talk about these things, and I love these conversations. And I don't know where we are at time or anything, but some things I want to talk about some nerd stuff. We gotta talk about some nerd stuff.
Okay, we do need to talk. Okay, I'm gonna let you lead on this.
I'm gonna let me lead on this.
Yes.
Oh, God. I don't know exactly where we're going. So anyway, magic. Let's talk about magic.
Austin wants to buy his cards back for $100. I told him it's never going to happen. He's like, tell Gary I want to buy my cards back that I sold him like 10, 20, 50 years ago for $100.
The chances of me even having those cards. I mean, I probably do because I have a massive collection. I have a stupid collection of cards.
I'm like, no, dude. That's
but yeah, the fact that he thinks that I could be like, oh yeah, these ones are Austin's. Like, I don't know at this point.
They're all mixed together.
They're all absorbed into my collections. Yeah. It's all been alphabetized. It's all by set.
He should know this because he's seen my collection. He knows how it works. But it's Austin. It just doesn't compete. It just doesn't register.
I know. I hear you talk about him on that. I always feel like maybe he's like living in the back room or something like that.
Yeah, no, he'll be here to pick my ass up actually after the podcast. And he lives like really close by my house. It's funny. Me and Austin become really, really close friends, and me and him used to. Oh my God, we'd have it out. But found out a lot of things about it. Austin is on the spectrum, and he's really like he found out late in his life. I found out. We both. I'm like, it makes a lot of sense on the way he looks at things and perspectives and how he reacts to things. Yeah. And I actually it made me research things, and I'm actually going to get tested to see whether I'm just high ADHD or I might be somewhere on the spectrum because of sensory things I didn't know about. It's so weird because it's a very now they're just it's not like you just have ADHD. Like ADHD is a spectrum.
Let's bring it back to magic.
Yeah, sorry. Austin said something about his cards. I'm like, there's no way you're getting those cards back.
Oh yeah, no, not at this point. For that amount of money, you can just go buy.
Not unless he's Rain Man.
I mean, it's possible. See how every single card.
See how I mixed that together? See how I did that?
Well, my collection's on its way. On its
spectrum. Yeah.
Is in shipping right now anyway. So. But when did you even start playing? Because I don't really remember you playing a lot back then. Not that any of us were real solidly playing when we were younger. But that's, I mean, I've been playing since 6th grade. So
I went into waves of it. I played when I was young, like 12, 13, then didn't play. And I played when I was in high school in Dover, like right before I moved to Rochester. So right before that time. And then I started smoking pot, and I got rid of all my cards. And then I didn't start playing again until 2016.
Okay, because I remember at one point it got brought up.
Holy shit! I am way out of the loop. Everything's changed.
Yeah, so much changed, and I took a big break too. Like I played somewhere in high school. I stopped playing, and then like. I remember even at one point on Lafayette Street when I was living there, there was some random people that were like, "Oh, you play Magic? Oh, I got cards. Hey, let's do this."
We were talking about that because that was like around the times of like new Phyrexia. Or whatever,
that was the Mirrodin block.
Mirrodin block.
Because I remember I ended up with a lot of cards from.
Ronnie played too, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Because I remember getting a lot of cards from that Onslaught block and that Mirrodin block. Just because I picked it up again on Lafayette Street.
That's why.
And there was a lot of value in those sets. Because now, fast forward, nearly 15 years. Like, it's
15 years.
And people that do play Magic know the value of the cards and things like that. To most people, they're just, decorative cardboard squares. But,
not to us.
Yeah.
Not to us nerds.
But I had stopped playing after that, and I missed so much. The game changed, and just so much value came out of the sets that came after that. Like, once again, fast forwarding 15 years, you don't know when it's happening, and the thing, Magic's speculative anyway. Because like, what if Wizards of the Coast doesn't want to make it anymore and wants to just give up? Yeah,
that's it.
And it destroys the value.
What do you think? You know how many people's lives could be ruined from something like that? Like, it could genuinely ruin it. Like, it could be like a stock market crash.
And
for people.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Like
it's the way one of the guys I listen to.
For listeners out there, if you don't realize, MTG has a very substantial real value in actual monetary value that varies.
Cardboard squares worth up to $10,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for the people out there that don't know
cardboard.
Magic the Gathering. It was amazing. I literally sold 7 cards the other day and made $120. I was in a jam and I'm like, I went down to Pop Culture and sold some higher value stuff. I mean, granted, they're only taking like 40% of what Star City Games is offering, and I'm like, fuck it. You know what? At the end of they were able to work it out with a couple of video games too. I sold them a couple of games. I'm like, I'm not usually in a jam, and these are cards that I'm never gonna play in a deck.
Yeah,
I'm not, a heavy modern player. I'm really just kind of playing casual at this point because I'm trying to get gathered.
Yeah, that's what I was curious was like what you're playing, because weren't you playing Commander? Did you have like a Commander group going for a while?
I did do that for a little bit. I was trying to play Standard. I was trying to get into drafts and Standard, but then it was just like, there's no money for this.
Yeah, no, yeah. And if you have limited funds, you don't have that disposable income, then it definitely makes it harder.
Well, and I do. It's just where. I mean, to an extent, I don't now, but at the time I probably did, and I was buying, boosters and then breaking, cracking, packs and selling a few singles, balancing it out.
Yeah.
I mean, you can really find a way to make your own money back with decks if you're careful with Magic. But it's, I still too much time watching Tolarian Community.
Oh yeah,
I love the Professor. Man.
Alpha Investments is what I was going to mention.
Yeah, Rudy.
I don't know if you Rudy, Crazy Rudy.
Crazy Rudy.
Crazy Rudy.
Eat fucking cereal out of boxes,
yep.
dude.
Little lesser known creator too, and he's insane, but he's fun to listen to sometimes. Is Purple.
I haven't. I'm gonna check it out. Probably subscribe.
He's
later.
Canadian.
Oh, I'm all about it.
It's just insane.
That's great.
You should check him out sometime too.
That's
He's
great.
good.
I
love
YouTube personalities.
Yeah.
And then YouTube's amazing.
Very, very controversial kind of guy. I enjoy listening to him too. Is a guy named Desolator Magic.
Yeah. Okay. So I.
Des goes off on some crazy tangents sometimes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So that's an entire. We could have an entire podcast about Desolator
Magic.
Magic.
Get that guy in this room and have some talks with him. But he hides out in whatever Midwest state that he lives in.
I can't get him on the show if I tried.
Oh yeah.
Come out of his house.
No, exactly.
Dude,
if he does, he'd be armed to the teeth.
Yeah. Yep. I know. He's libertarian, right?
I don't somewhere in
there.
there. Probably right leaning libertarian somewhere on that spectrum.
All right, just for the hell of it. Lots of pictures of Pepe.
But and like guys like that too, because the Magic community is very inclusive, which is great. It should be. It should be inclusive to everything
of everybody.
But I think a lot of the argument too is in recent years is that they've pushed that they've pushed that so hard
Hard.
that it's pushed other people away. People that aren't being pandered to anymore, which
Right.
are honestly the ones that make up most of the
Yes,
base of the players.
They're trying to bring
So,
in new players
you
and
know-
make it more inclusive to include more, but those aren't their target demographic.
Yeah, and
Wizards
you
need to
can't-
learn their target demographic.
And you can't cut your nose off to spite your face.
Bingo.
And it seems like that's what they're doing. But they're also a very left coast company, and like
That's true,
you know.
but they are because of where they started, like in what is it, Portland or Oregon,
Seattle,
or something like that.
If I remember correctly.
I know it's in the Northwest, but
And
they're owned by Hasbro.
Correct.
Right?
They were sold to Hasbro years
is
back.
a multi-million-dollar corporation. And they, I just making sure of the time. Yeah, we're getting close. Being such a massive company, they have to try to expand. But like you said, like they need to do some fan service more than what they're doing right now, because they are kind of pandering to a new diversity demographic, which doesn't exist for Magic.
No, it's there. It's there. Like the top
I shouldn't say it
levels of
doesn't
Magic.
exist,
But see, the top
but-
levels of Magic aren't what's driving the company. That's not what's making
No,
Hasbro.
Friday night,
Magic Fest isn't
FNM
making Hasbro money. FNM is making
FNM
them
somewhere in
money.
Paducah, Kentucky,
Yeah.
is what's making them money,
Yeah.
right? And that's what they need to remember, is that they're going to kill their own. And I just talked to a guy the other day, Pop Culture. I'll let them know. Yeah, we're getting to.
I literally know nothing about the Magic.
I know. Sorry,
But-
we were trying
For
to
the record,
disclude you.
Oh, no worries.
Justin took a few seconds away.
I had to go
from
hang
the
around anyway, so. But no, I mean, I feel like I would get sucked into it.
Oh,
honestly.
it's
a
one of
big
those
thing.
things.
It's cardboard crack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They call it that for a reason.
Yeah, I mean that feeling
Oh,
of cracking
open
that
packs.
fresh pack, and what am I gonna get? It's like it's
Endorphin
like
release. Yeah,
doing the old.
that's an endorphin release
Slot
thing
machine
right
right
there
there.
too.
I feel like
It
that's
really
something I
is.
should probably do soon, and somebody's gonna be like, "Hey,
Yeah,
these are these cards."
No, we'll sit down and go over some stuff, because me and Gavin play all the time. We need more players. I'm trying to get Austin into it, and he's like, "Oh, kid, get me my old cards back."
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So my argument in that whole thing with Friday Night Magic and how they're really not focusing. I think they should be focusing on their target demographic.
Yeah.
In that it's good to obviously be inclusive of everybody, but they can't force that. As Des Later Magic would call it, SJW bullshit.
Yeah. Yep.
Down everybody's throats. I agree with the inclusive aspect of it, but at the same time, the thing that I was talking to the guy at Pop Culture about was they're now pushing out businesses because of the expectations for FNM, for them
Right.
to do
If you want to
tournaments.
hold sanctioned FNMs, there's lots of rules and there's
But
things
they
that
upped
need
it.
to be.
They keep on making it more difficult.
Making it harder. Like play space needs to be. You need X amount of seats and things like that.
Right.
And it's funny. My cousin owns a shop downtown here. The Chromatic Dragon. Fairly new.
Yes,
downtown here.
Yep.
And I know I was, and that's probably where I'm going to head after this. Actually, so see if
awesome.
he's there and visit him.
Cool.
But I know he was talking about that. It was that they were having problems with it too because their store is small and it just is what it is. They only have so many seats in there. They try to, get other people to play in. It's not just a come in and play Magic kind of place.
Right.
And they don't have the space. They don't have the seatings. And maybe that's changed. I don't know. Got to go talk to them. But like they're like you got to take videos, file an application process.
So
and you really
same
got to
thing.
know.
He was
all your
telling me
stuff.
that thing, and he's like, they have different tiers of it now to make
Yeah.
it so they can get different tiers. But the first tier, they made it very difficult.
Yeah, and if you're not in one of those higher tiers, you're not getting X number of pre-release packs. You're not getting, X amount of boxes on release day and things like that. It makes it hard to promote your events and make it bigger and do better.
Which shoots themselves in the foot. Their bottom line is those FNM nights. In as a business, I feel like that's very irresponsible of them. Because tournaments aren't their entire. That's not their bread.
And for some of those stores, like Magic is what makes them money. They can support the rest of the gaming community through Magic.
Through
because
Magic.
Magic's making them money. So maybe now we
So
can
they
do
can
a little bit
support all
more
the other
Warhammer.
TCGs.
And Warhammer's ultra popular too. That's usually what I see between places. It's either you're heavy into Magic or you're heavy into Warhammer.
Yeah.
Like those, I think, are the two big things
So
that
Pokemon's
drive.
not really a thing anymore.
It depends the area you're
I know
in.
Force of Will in certain areas is a popular one.
Yeah,
too.
that's the new one that came out by Magic. I don't know where my hat went, but it was my game store that I've been playing at in South Carolina.
Really?
Great. It's an amazing store.
Yeah.
And
Have
it's
you
called,
played that game
called
at
Gamefly. I have not.
Okay.
Not was it Force of Will? I think Force of Will went down. There's another one that just came out though.
Okay.
And I forget what it is, but it's made by Richard Garfield was involved in it. Who's
Yeah.
the creator of Magic ultimately. He was involved. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but that's really taken off right now too. But the plug for Firefly down in South Carolina, and I always thought it was great, was that like he fostered a great environment for people to come and play games. He made it easy for you to just go spend the afternoon there.
See, that's awesome.
And like
that's what they should all be doing.
yeah, and it wasn't just Magic, but like any day of the week, at any time, you could go in there and find a Magic game.
Yeah.
You could almost always go in there and find somebody playing Pokemon somewhere. They hold events every
Or other people
weekend. There's
do
like a
tabletop and
Yeah.
all that. Yeah.
and tabletop is huge. They got Warhammer stuff set up, and like when I was down there, he actually moved into a like Walgreens type space. He went from like a smaller store with a good amount of playing room, like I don't know square footage, but like moving into a place that was the size of a Walgreens and cleared it out for players.
So
And literally hundreds of people are there on any given day.
I considered
Like-
doing something like I actually bounced around the idea of like a gaming store at the Lee Market Basket Plaza. It would be a perfect spot in between Epping or Epping would be another spot, but it's kind of too close to Raymond. You know?
Plus, you got Lee's Circle Grocery going on.
Yeah.
And like I know Jetpack does pretty well as far as I can tell on their events and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've stopped in there a few times and kind of had mixed feelings about it, but that's something personal. It's still a great store. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah.
So
it's tough,
but
the room is always the size of the room is always the fast.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, because I've seen that place packed before, and it makes it tough, and and you don't got time to help you out and things like that. But so the point I was trying to make though is so like where I came from in South Carolina was Columbia, South Carolina. It's the capital. It's got a population about the size of Manchester, give or take. So just to give like New England people the idea of how big Columbia is. So I mean, it supports a pretty big gaming community, and really like there's only a few stores. And really, you look at like the Tri-City area, and it's like almost got the same amount of stores almost, because you got Toys in the Attic down the road, you got Chromatic Dragon that my cousin opened, you got Jetpack. I mean, is there any other stores that I'm missing that are in this area that support like Magic and gaming and hobby and stuff like that?
Portsmouth, Stairway to Heaven, I think, still has F&M.
Okay.
And that's right now in Woodbury Ave, right near where the Joe's New York Pizza and all that stuff is. That's the only one I can think of. Oh, well, and they did have their shop in Exeter and stuff, but other than that, not in our little Tri-City area.
Yeah. And it's hard to find the space in an area like
That's
this.
it.
like in a
For
place
low
that's a
rent.
little bit bigger, you got to find rent because you still got to pay the bills. So
Right. And for that place, the overhead's got to be low. Like because you got most of the time you're a comic shop too, which means diamond orders.
Possible.
Means categorizing most of that stuff as well as everything. Yeah, it's not always, but a lot of times they are.
Right.
And it's just like that balance has got to be tough.
And the more you focus on things too, I think that helps from like a business owner, like because if you do comics and you do like Magic type stuff, like because like comic people aren't necessarily playing Magic people aren't necessarily buying comics. I mean, there is some crossover, don't get me wrong, but like that turns it kind of increases your overhead too though, because it's like now you need all of this back issues, like boxes of commons sitting on the wall that people might want to buy but don't really want to buy,
Just having
Like,
them hanging out, sitting on it, and the overhead to buy them, to sit on them until somebody finally does want them because they're commons. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
You're right. And that's I think the biggest struggle is that initial overhead, if you can build the community, but then it's like between categorizing stuff and all that, it's wild.
and the average age of like
Yeah.
Magic players is like us, because we're the demographic. We're the almost middle-aged nerds that played when we were kids, and it's a lot harder
Nostalgia
to get kids
swing,
into it. Yeah.
but that's a lot of it. Star Wars. Speaking of, before we go, we gotta talk.
Okay,
Star
gotta
Wars.
talk. All right, I like it.
I know this isn't again Justin's wheelhouse. I feel so bad. So we didn't even discuss music.
I've seen a little bit of Star Wars.
That's my mission, is getting him to see all of them in a row. We're gonna sit down. We're gonna watch 1 through 9.
Okay.
Over like 4 days. It's gonna take a while.
Festivals.
There's so much, but I got your take, because I personally liked episode 8. Everybody hated it. I was a fan of it. I liked it a lot. I liked the unexpected twists, and
Right. And
I felt like it was very paralleled to Empire, actually, in a lot of ways.
So you and I have gone back and forth, like, over the internet about this, and I will always come back to this one point, and you'd probably know what I'm about to say already, is that when Disney acquired LucasArts, they destroyed the extended universe, which was a very carefully cultivated universe that George Lucas kept lots and lots of leashes on. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And like, he made that universe. Now, granted, he sold it for billions of dollars, so he's happy.
They could have kept it and built on that,
right? And
because it was perfect. I mean, most of it, even the integrated crossovers between writers and him, he kept a leash on.
Yeah, he was the stamp of approval somewhere in that chain.
Yeah,
always. So he always kind of knew what was going on in the world.
Empire and everything.
Yeah, so there wasn't like a point where they would be like, okay, well, I know we wrote 5 books about this, but I want to make this new book that people are going to like. So let's just say that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. And Disney bought it.
No way.
They get to do whatever they want with it. And what they decided to do is pretty much destroy a well-cultivated story over, from, what was it, 1978? Something like that was when the first one came out. You might want to fact check me on that. Yeah. But anyway, from like 1978 to the sale of it in the 2000s. Like that, nearly 25, 30 something years of cultivated
Tales of Mos Eisley
universe.
Cantina, Tales of the Bounty Hunter,
and now none of that matters. None of those awesome stories matter.
They might, though. They'll use some of it every now and then.
But see, that's the thing. But see, it's like it doesn't matter. It's because Disney told us it doesn't matter. Now they're going to write books in the universe that they decided to create.
Oh, but The Mandalorian is so good. It is so good, man.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I watched the whole series. I enjoyed it. But you're right. But I also really enjoyed
Tales of the Bounty
Rogue One.
Oh yeah, Rogue One,
which of course had almost nothing to do with the actual story, the Rogue story, which more books that don't matter. Yep. That's why I get upset, because like we talk about things that we talk about things going forward, and then you remember in your head like, oh, I read a book about that. Oh wait, none of that matters.
They've just eliminated it entirely. Yeah,
like, because they could have taken any of those series and adapted them into a movie, into a new trilogy.
Benny Benthens died.
Yeah, and
they never used it.
It's frustrating because I know Disney needs to make money. I'm all about them making money. They can do whatever they want.
Dude, it's literally the meme with fucking Fry and the fucking shut up and take my money.
Because like Star Wars comes out, I'm gonna go see it. I'm still gonna see it. Like, I don't hate the universe now. I'm just very sad that I spent my childhood involving myself in this story and knowing about it and like being a proud nerd because I knew about it.
Fucking window.
Yeah.
Like every facet, right down to Mara Jade and
Oh yeah. Well,
I know.
And I was in the middle of reading one of the book series when the deal went through and they said it was all over, and I forget which one it was. It was one of the newer ones, and it was it was like the story was with Boba Fett and all the main characters everybody knows and stuff like that. Because like in the old, as you know, like Boba Fett escapes from the Sarlacc pit, which is the last place you see him in movie canon.
He dies, but in Tales of the Bounty Hunter, he escapes the Sarlacc pit.
And then he continues to go on and be the most successful man in the universe, pretty much.
Yeah,
but
but he wasn't even really a Mandalorian. He just had Mandalorian armor.
He actually became the head of the Mandalorian. But once again, here we are discussing something that doesn't exist.
Well, no, because they are including the fact that Mandalore was a planet.
Yes.
But the Mandalorian aspect was a creed and not a race of people.
Right. No, yeah. And I mean, even some of that stuff, because like I said, Disney's still using some of these things. But
at their will, right? And that's the thing that sucks. Is like they don't have to just disregard shit.
Yeah.
that they're considering to be legend or whatever.
Right, now there were just legends of things that happened, but there was like so much happened after Return of the Jedi, which is where Lucas like left the final movie. These books developed this universe where all these
Timothy
other
Zahn
things
books.
happened.
Yeah.
Like the Republic rose. There was no First Order.
Right.
There was the Thrawn trilogy. There was remnants of the Empire. There were things that were out there that were still working against the rebels and things like that. But like,
but not this other story that
no.
they've done.
And then
which
the
is-
Yuzon Vong War, and maybe I just pronounced that wrong, but like this huge like alien species from outside the galaxy comes and just starts destroying everything in the Star Wars galaxy, and it's
they
a
just
giant war.
They've eliminated
Like,
that entirely.
yeah.
They might bring it though.
Yeah.
They might use it.
And at
because
that
it's-
point, you know, Leia and Han had more children. That was
this
it.
is Ben Skywalker.
Luke
right?
had a child with
Not Ben
Mara,
Solo?
who was Ben. In,
That's what it was.
in the legends that don't matter, and then.
So we could spend another hour.
Oh
and a
yeah,
half
absolutely.
doing
I
this.
really wish kind of we had started here. That would,
Yeah,
that would
yeah,
have been
that'd
great.
be
I mean,
great.
we had a great conversation. Don't get me
No,
wrong.
for sure,
but,
for sure. Well, it was a blast having you on. This has been great, and we're gonna do this again. Make it a yearly thing. You're up here at least once a year, right?
I try to be. You know, I'm heading off to Hawaii next, and so the trips home are going to be a little infrequent in the next few years. But because I'll be coming home to see my family too and stuff. So
sure.
But hey, if I'm ever
great
here,
time.
we can wax on about
Seriously.
Star Wars and magic and all sorts of awesome stuff.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
didn't even get to touch
I
base
know.
on music.
We talked about quasi politics with trying to, you know, keep stay as apolitical as possible.
Hey,
'Cause that's what I was kind of shooting for as,
Hey,
as
you
a,
did-
as
I
a
think
proud
you did a great
military
job.
service member.
No,
and I appreciate we just didn't talk about the Army the entire time because I could have done that too.
Yeah,
Could have
yeah,
just
yeah.
talked about that forever.
Hey, I really like the tangents that were effective in this conversation. They weren't really a tangent. We stayed pretty on. Thanks
but
to
we-
you. You got us back a couple of
I
times.
mean, I was trying to. I mean, there was a few times I wanted to jump in on a couple other things in the beginning, but
yeah.
I mean, we left some stuff on the table.
There's only so much
definitely,
time
but-
in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, we want to thank you again for coming on, and we'll definitely do this again, and just stay in touch.
Yeah,
and
man.
we'll,
Anytime.
We'll pass back and forth, and when you're in the area too, we'll have
Yeah.
to try.
Hey,
to...
I'm on the, you know, I'm on Facebook and that's where I am. So if you,
Me too. We're old people now because we're all on Facebook.
Yeah,
And Facebook is even a thing. Popular people nowadays, the young
it's even about
kids,
Snapchat
Instagram
nowadays, right?
and Snapchat,
Instagram.
TikTok, or whatever.
I know. People are always like, add me on Snapchat. I'm like, I don't have a Snapchat.
Snap a what?
What is that?
Yeah, that's only to show people pictures of yourself.
For like 10 seconds or something?
I
and
don't know.
stories?
I
I don't know. It's probably just like all other social
I
media,
feel
but
so old about it. Yeah. I mean, I have an idea. I have one, but it's so confusing to me because I don't know why ones are certain colors.
Oh yeah, I mean, none of us are old fogies. Like, we could involve ourselves in it and understand
how much
it. It's
time
just
do you
we
have to
choose
dive
not
into
to.
it? Right?
Yeah.
For sure. Well, as always, we thank you for listening in, and we want to thank Garry again for coming on, and thank you all out there for listening. If you get a chance to check out the Patreon, it helps us out a lot, but we just thank you for listening and spread the word if you can. As always, abstract to abstract.
Abstract Transmissions.